Sometime in the dark, on a summer night in 1912, a man moved through a small house in a small Iowa town, carrying an axe. By the time the sun came up, 8 people were dead in their beds, a family of 6, and 2 little girls who were only there for a sleepover. But it isn't just the scale of it that has haunted this case for more than 100 years. It's what the killer did after. Before he left that house, he moved from room to room and he covered every mirror. He covered the faces of the people he had killed. He drew the curtains, and by every indication, he did not rush out into the night when it was done. He stayed. He lingered in that house of the dead, in the dark, for what may have been hours, calm, unhurried, as if he were in no danger at all. And then, at some point, he simply walked out into the Iowa night and vanished, and was never, ever caught. This is the Villisca axe murders, and it is, to this day, one of the most disturbing and completely unsolved mass murders in American history. 8 lives, 1 house, 1 night, and a killer who covered the mirrors and was never named. I'll tell it to you with care, because 6 of these victims were children. Let me tell you about the family and the town. Villisca was a small, tight-knit farming community in southwestern Iowa, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where doors were left unlocked, where the worst thing anyone expected to happen was a bad harvest. In the summer of 1912, it was as peaceful and ordinary an American town as you could find. At the heart of this story is the Moore family. Josiah Moore, a well-liked local businessman in his early 40s, his wife, Sarah, and their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, ranging from 11 years old down to just 5. A normal, happy, respected family, active in their church, woven into the life of the town. On the evening of June 9, 1912, the community held a Children's Day program at the local Presbyterian church, an event Sarah Moore had helped organize. The Moore children took part, and when it was over that night, 2 other children, sisters Lena and Ina Stillinger, came home with the Moores to stay the night, a sleepover. Lena was 12, Ina was 8. 2 little girls spending the night at a friend's house after a church program, the way children have done forever. There were 8 people in the Moore house when the lights went out that night. 2 parents, 6 children. By morning, all 8 of them would be dead, and the ordinary little town of Villisca would never be ordinary again. The Moores and the Stillinger girls came home from the church program late that evening, sometime around 9:30 or 10 at night. The house settled, the lamps went out, the children were put to bed, and the adults turned in. And at some point in the deep quiet of that night, someone came into the house. We don't know exactly how. A door, a window. What we do know is that the intruder didn't need to bring a weapon, because the weapon used to commit these murders was an axe that belonged to the Moores themselves. It was found afterward in the house. The killer had simply picked up the family's own axe from their own property. And then, one by one, in the dark, while they slept, this person killed everyone in that house. All 8 of them. The parents, the 4 Moore children, and the 2 little Stillinger sisters, who had only come for a sleepover. I'm not going to describe the injuries. It's not necessary. And these were 8 human beings, 6 of them children, and they deserved better than to be turned into a catalog of horror. What matters is that it was done methodically, in the dark, to sleeping victims, in near silence, in a house full of people, without a single one of them, apparently, able to raise an alarm in time. But it's what the killer did once they were dead that turns this from a tragedy into something that has never stopped disturbing people. The bodies were discovered the next morning, June 10th. A neighbor named Mary Peckham noticed that something was wrong at the Moore house. It was well into the morning, and there was no sign of life. No chores being done. No children playing. The chickens hadn't even been let out. The house sat there, curtains drawn, silent, in a way that felt wrong to a neighbor who knew this family's habits. She grew worried. She tried the door. She knocked. Nothing. She contacted Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, who came over. Ross Moore let himself in and went inside to see why his brother's family hadn't stirred. And Ross Moore walked into the aftermath of one of the worst crimes his state had ever seen. He didn't go far. What he glimpsed in the first bedroom was enough. He backed out, shaken to his core, and the alarm went up. The marshal was called. Word spread through Villisca like a cold wind. And here, in these first hours, is where the investigation began to fall apart before it even started. Because in a small town in 1912, with no real understanding of crime scene preservation, what happened next was catastrophic. People came, neighbors, the curious. Half the town, it said, walked through that house that day before anyone thought to protect the scene. Whatever evidence that killer left behind, footprints, fingerprints, small telling details, was trampled, touched, and destroyed by the very community trying to make sense of the horror. But even through all that chaos, investigators recorded a set of details from inside that house that have never been explained and never been forgotten. The killer had covered the mirrors. Every mirror in the house and pieces of glass had been covered over with cloth. The faces of the victims had been covered as well. The curtains were drawn. Whoever did this did not want to be seen, or did not want to see, or was doing something with meaning that we will never understand. There were stranger things still. A slab of uncut bacon was found in one of the rooms, out of place. A bowl or basin of bloody water where it seemed the killer had washed. A lamp with its chimney removed, left burning low. Small, deliberate, domestic details arranged by someone who was in absolutely no hurry. And that is the detail that chills investigators the most. This killer did not do what killers usually do, which is to strike and flee. This killer stayed. The evidence suggested they remained in that house, among the dead, for a long time, perhaps sitting, perhaps waiting for the dawn, calm enough to cover mirrors, to wash, to leave a lamp burning, before finally walking out. Who does that? What kind of mind kills 8 people, 6 of them children, and then settles in among them in the dark, in no rush at all, before disappearing forever? That question has haunted this case for over a century, and we're going to look at the people who were suspected of being the answer. The investigation into the Villisca murders was, from the start, a mess, and it stayed that way for years. Remember, this is 1912. There is no DNA. Fingerprinting is in its infancy and barely used in a rural Iowa case. The crime scene had been overrun and destroyed by curious townspeople within hours. Bloodhounds were brought in, but the trail led nowhere useful. The investigators were working almost blind in a case with no witnesses, no clear motive, and a scene that had been effectively wiped clean by the public before any professional could read it. And so, as happens with these cases, the vacuum filled with theory, accusation, and obsession. Over the following years, several suspects emerged, were investigated, and in a couple of cases were even put on trial. But not one of them was ever convicted. Every road led into the same fog. Quick word before we go on. If these old, dark cases grip you the way they grip me, please subscribe. This channel is built on exactly this. The cases that were closed but never solved, and there's a new one every week. Now, let me walk you through the main suspects, and I'll do it the way I always do, carefully, because these were real, named people, and none of them was ever proven to have done a thing. Over the years, a few names rose above the rest. The first was a traveling minister, a strange, troubled man who had been in the area at the time and whose behavior drew suspicion. He was actually brought to trial for the murders. He is even said to have given a confession at one point, which he then took back, claiming it was coerced. His case went to a jury, and it ended without a conviction. A hung jury the first time, and an acquittal the second. Whatever the truth of him, the law never pinned it down. Another theory, and a persistent one, points not at a lone madman, but at a conspiracy. It centers on a powerful local businessman who is said to have had a bitter grudge against Josiah Moore over business and money. The theory goes that this man did not swing the axe himself, but hired someone to do it, and that the hired killer may have been a man suspected in other similar axe attacks elsewhere, a possible early serial killer drifting the country, leaving slaughtered families in his wake. It's a chilling idea, and it connects Villisca to a wider, darker pattern of unsolved axe murders across America in that era. But like everything else in this case, it was never proven. No one was ever convicted. The powerful man denied it. The drifter was never tied to it in court. I want to be clear, as I always am. Every one of these men is long dead, and not one of them was ever found guilty of these murders. Suspicion, in a case with no evidence left, is just suspicion. So why was Villisca never solved? By now, you can probably see the shape of it. It's the same tragic pattern we find again and again. Start with the era, 1912. No forensic science worth the name. No way to lift and match the traces a modern lab would seize on instantly. Add the contamination. This is the big one for Villisca. The crime scene was destroyed, not by weather, not by time, but by the townspeople themselves, walking through that house in the first hours before anyone understood what a crime scene even was. Whatever the killer left behind was gone before a single trained investigator arrived. Add the killer, because whoever did this was, in their own terrible way, careful. They used a weapon already on the property. They covered their tracks, literally covered the mirrors and faces. They didn't panic. They took their time and then vanished into a country where a person could disappear completely, with no cameras, no records, no way to trace a stranger passing through. And add the noise. Decades of theories, accusations, trials, and obsession, none of it ever producing the one thing that would close the case: proof. Put it together, and you have a mass murder of 8 people, 6 of them children, in a small American town that remains to this day completely and officially unsolved. The house still stands, the graves are still there, and the name of the person who walked in with that axe has never been spoken with any certainty.
So who really did it? Let me lay out the honest possibilities. The first is the traveling killer. That this was the work of a drifter, possibly the same disturbed man suspected in other axe murders of families in that era, who came through Villisca, did this, and moved on. It fits the randomness, the lack of a clear local motive, and the wider pattern of similar crimes, but it was never proven, and he was never convicted. The second is the conspiracy, the powerful local enemy, the grudge, the hired killer. It gives the crime a motive, an answer to the maddening question of why this family, but it rests on rumor and accusation, and it never held up in any court. And the third is the minister, the strange traveling preacher who was tried, who may have confessed and recanted, and who was ultimately acquitted. Some are still convinced of his guilt. The law was not. And the fourth is the one the case keeps returning to: that whoever did this was simply someone deeply, unknowably disturbed. Someone whose covering of the mirrors and the faces, whose calm lingering among the dead points to a mind we cannot map or explain, acting for reasons that died with them. Every theory leaves the same hole. No proof, no conviction, no certainty. Just 8 people, an axe from their own home, a covered mirror, and a killer who walked out into the dark of 1912 and was never seen.
I want to bring it back to the people before we finish, because it is very easy with a case this old and this infamous to forget that these were not characters in a ghost story. They were real. Josiah and Sarah Moore were parents raising 4 children in a town they loved, active in their church, respected by their neighbors. Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul were kids, 11, 10, 7, and 5, with birthdays ahead of them, and school, and whole lives that were simply erased in a single night. And Lena and Ina Stillinger, 12 and 8, were guests. 2 little girls who went to a church program and then to a friend's house for a sleepover, the most innocent thing in the world, and never went home. That is the true weight of Villisca. Not the covered mirrors, not the haunted house reputation the place has taken on in the years since, now a stop for ghost tours and thrill seekers. Underneath all of that, there are 8 graves, and 6 of them belong to children. And not one of those 8 ever got the justice of knowing their killer was caught. The house in Villisca still stands. People pay to spend the night there now, looking for ghosts. But the realest, saddest haunting of that place isn't a spirit. It's the fact that 8 people were murdered under its roof, and after more than 100 years, no one has ever had to answer for it. So I'll leave it with you the way I always do. Who do you believe walked into that house in 1912? A drifting killer passing through, leaving a slaughtered family behind him. A hired man sent by a powerful enemy with a grudge. The strange traveling preacher the law could never convict, or someone whose name was never even written down,
disturbed beyond anything we can understand. Tell me in the comments. I read them. And on a case this old and this haunting, I really want to know where you land, because for over a century, no one has been able to agree. I'm Gravenfield, the cases that were closed but never solved. If you made it this far, you understand exactly what this channel is. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves out there, and lock your doors tonight. Some of these old houses never really let go of what happened inside them.